Chapter 16, Social Policy and Welfare State. During the Great Depression, President Roosevelt redefined relationships between the federal government and its citizens. New Deal programs was sent forth for a welfare state, a new development in the political life of America. Remember, the New Deal is where we automatically have things coming out of our federal budget that help the people, the citizens. And in its original form to help us get out of the recession and the Great Depression, this was a good thing. But they don't change with us like they're supposed to the next several years. So here's the major domestic expenditures by the federal government. Social Security was 20%, income security 15%, Medicare 12%, health 9%, education, training, employment, and social services almost 4%, transportation almost 3%, administration of justice almost 2%, national resources 1%, community and regional development almost 1%, general science, space, and technology almost 1%, energy almost 1%, agriculture almost 1%. That's where the budget goes. Civic culture and social policy. The influence of religion on education. The Northwest Ordinance of 1787. Guys, we talked about this back in chapter 2. Okay? The Northwest Ordinance is where new states coming into our admission, new states that are admitted, will have equal value as the original 13 colonies. It also said that we will have land set aside for churches, schools, and federal buildings. Nativist and anti-Catholic settlement in 1840. Remember, they're the Know-Nothing Party, and they go through and are all about the right people coming into the United States in the 1840s. It revamps itself again. You know, they didn't want the Irish, they didn't want the Catholics, they didn't want people because they felt that the Catholics had undue influence from the Vatican. Private schools versus public schools, parochial schools. Should school vouchers be given? There are a lot of people that are very much pro voucher system, that your kids should go to whatever school would be best for them, and that the government should fund that. Right now, there's a census day for all schools, October 1, and they actually do an actual census count of their students. And that depends on how much federal funding comes into the school. Is your parent working on a military installation? Is your school on a military installation? And how much money per dollar the state spends on your child? A school voucher means if you go to a private school, that there would be money that would have went into that public school and sent into the private school. Creationism versus evolution. Yeah, that's one that is hard for most people. Do you believe in evolution, or do you believe in creationism? That's up to you how you believe. I'm just giving you the facts of evolutionary states. We evolved. Our species has evolved over time. Some people believe from a aspect, when you look at the Ice Age man, there are different things. Creationism, God made you, He created the world in 7 days. Social gospel movement. Social gospel movement is where the churches are going through and helped motivate what kind of charity organizations would be funded from the churches. And assistance to the needy. Should we take care of the needy? Is that our platform in life? So FDR's New Deal. One of the first things he does is he starts the FDIC, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. It's very important that you make sure when you open an account that they are FDIC insured, which means that if you have money in a bank up to right now $250,000, you will receive that money back if they have insurance. If you have over $250,000, then it's a percentage. There's a guarantee, and then the other's a percentage. And it's so that we can get our money back. You know, you can't go always and withdraw everything you have in the bank. When we sign into a bank, there's some stipulations and some requirements. But this was after the stock market crash and the closing of lots of banks that did high interest loans that were very scary, and people that shouldn't have received loans that received loans anyway. So the FDI, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, came in, and it backs banks to make sure that they're following protocol. The other thing that happened during that time is the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission. The Securities and Exchange Commission is vitally important. If you run in the stock market at all, you want to make sure that you're not being unfairly pushed into getting information. You know, Martha Stewart went to jail for insider trading. She knew somebody on the stock exchange, and she was given insider information and gained a lot of money because of it. And it set rules and regulations for the stock exchange. Aid to families with dependent children, AFDC. Aid to families with dependent children means that mothers and families will have food for their kids. It is a welfare program. You are means tested in order to qualify for it. You have to be at a certain income level. And it's very much a program to benefit those that are needy. Social Security, we've talked about Social Security a couple times in here. Remember, Social Security in its inception was meant for people over the age of 65. The most people only lived to 62, so they really felt that it was the few and far between. Elderly and children, so that they could benefit from it. And children couldn't stay it on for a long time. Social Security Board, when an insured worker dies, leaving dependent children and a widow, both mother and children receive a monthly benefit until the child reaches the age of 18. Now we have rules and regulations that the kid has to be in school, and they have to be able to verify enrollment on that. And it has to be non-college level. FDR argued for a second Bill of Rights, which would promote security and prosperity for all. That one failed because they really felt that there was enough with Social Security in there. Truman's Fair Deal. Under President Truman, he asked Congress to provide universal health care insurance coverage. They didn't see that this was needed. A lot of companies at that time had health insurance, and they felt that you should buy it through your employer. But we do enact a National School Lunch Program and Housing Act of 1949. That's a really good portion that comes in under Truman, that we get a national lunch program. And it started out with just school lunch, and now it has broadened to breakfast and lunch at a discounted rate or completely free for people that qualify for it. Eisenhower and modern Republicans accepted social welfare problems created by previous administrations, such as Social Security, unemployment insurance, labor laws, and agricultural programs. He really thought those programs were important and that they were working the way they were supposed to. Remember, when Eisenhower takes over president, he goes from being general to being president. When he takes over, we're on a high. Okay, Truman has left office. He's the first president to receive a compensation for being president. He's the first one to receive a retirement. We create the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. They've seen those as important ones that needed to be added to the cabinet department so that we could make sure all kids are getting educated, so we could make sure the health and the welfare of our society was going well. National Defense Education Act of 1958 comes in, that all children can go to school, that all children have equal opportunity for an education, no matter their race, color, or creed. Now remember, 1954, we've already had Board of Education. Eisenhower is the president that sends troops in. He nationalizes the National Guard to allow kids to go into school in Little Rock. Okay, he's very clear that equal rights has to happen in the military and on the home front. Then we go into Johnson and his Great Society. President Johnson declared war on poverty. President Johnson was really more concerned with what was going on in the United States domestically than he was on foreign policy. It seems to be that the president either for foreign policy or for domestic policy. And Johnson, under his Great Society, was much more for. He wanted a war on poverty. He thought there should never be a child in the United States that goes hungry in the wealthiest country of the world. Greatest Society program designed to reduce poverty, improve urban America, and foster a sense of community. In 1964, the Economic Opportunity Act came in. Food stamps are enacted in 1964 to help families that were not making needs. And they used to actually come out in a stamp form. You had a booklet of stamps. And now it's, it looks like a credit card. Medicare and Medicaid come in and are redefined. Medicare is for the elderly. Medicaid is for the young, in order that everybody can have health care and taken care of. Because he's seen that there were lots of families that could not afford health care, or elderly that could not afford health care. And so it costs more to take care of somebody sick instead of getting routine items. Remember, somebody with stage 4 cancer is going to cost a lot more than if you catch it before it is precancerous or at stage 1. Supplemental Security Income, SSI, is enacted where we take that off of our, it's supplements you can add to your Social Security to make that go further. We also enact the Earned Income Tax Credit for discounts of the families. Means-tested programs versus entitlement. Okay. Entitlement means everyone receives it. Means-tested means you have to qualify based on your income level. Most people believe everything should be means-tested, except for like entitlement. It is your right as an American citizen. You are entitled to vote. So the largest mean-tested program, Medicaid, supplemental insurance, earned income credit, food stamps, Section 8 low-income housing assistance, TANF, federal Pell Grants, child care, child tax credits, Medicare, foster care, Head Start, public housing, school lunch program, state children's health insurance, CHIP, TANF services, and federal subsidized student loans are all means tested. And here is the means tested since 1962. All the way up, you're looking at $500 billion for means-tested programs. The End of Welfare Entitlement, Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Act of 1996. This is under Bill Clinton. And it replaced the AFDC, which these families, needy families with dependent children, to temporary assistance to needy families, TANF. This was a great program, okay? This is where you've heard about it when Mitt Romney ran against Obama. Mitt Romney was governor and had a good program when he was governor on taking people off of welfare and getting them into work programs. And what it said is, in this temporary program, you have 5 years to get on your feet. And this 5 years, in that time, you should be able to figure out, we'll help you pay for school. We'll help you we'll help you in any way we can to get you where you're no longer on that assistance. We understand that it's a temporary thing, not being on welfare for the rest of your life. And that really works well for the longest time. It decreased the amount of people on welfare because they knew they were going off. The deal is minimum wage is $7.25. If you are able to get every piece of welfare that you qualify for, if you every one of those pieces, you'd be making $12.50 in Oklahoma. And they replaced the entitlement program with block grants to states. So they said, instead of it just being an entitlement program, we're going to send the states this amount of money to go for certain things, and the state is going to regulate it. Took it out of the federal program and put it at the state. Okay, so look where our money's going. Okay, number of welfare. And then you see how it drastically drops when we go to TANF. Okay, that people know it's a short-term item, not a long-term to be receiving that help. Drop in welfare caseloads, but poverty rate has not dropped. More low-income members receive federal aid now than at any point in the past. So there's something we're going to have to do. If more Americans are receiving it than at any point in the past, we need to look at what we can do to make things better. What are the costs? What are we doing? Those kind of items. Here's a percent of people on poverty. How Social Security is funded. Contributions to Social Security is in a trust fund. Current working generations pay for the retired generation. The problem is that retirement population is the baby boomers. And so when the baby boomers, when we enacted Social Security, for the longest time, for every one person on Social Security, there were 3 to 5 people working. Now this large group of baby boomers has retired, and for everybody on Social Security is 1-to-1, if we're lucky, sometimes 1-to-2. Greenspan Commission formed to address the funding issues. And a large portion of that is the people that are the baby boomer generations that have gotten so old, and we didn't change Social Security to look at those numbers. Uncertainty about Social Security projects. Here's a chart on that. Attempts at Social Security reform. In 2005, President Bush suggested a voluntary person retirement account, privatization. Most people wanted nothing to do with that. They said, look at the stock market crashes. That's not a good idea. It was a mixed response, but no change. Few believe Social Security can be sustained without some type of change. I could see where it would go up to you can't take it until you're 70. We need to look at the average age of people living and the average age of people actually working, and look at people actually saving money in a retirement account instead of thinking Social Security will be their retirement. Project revenue cost and annual budget for Social Security Trust. This is what they're looking at, and this is where we come up with the deficits. And remember, this is still projections. Medicare expansion, helped costs with prescription drugs, created a voluntary health savings account, expanded funding for rural health services, and provided new coverage for preventive care. Preventative care is very, very important. People need to look at, are they doing their yearly health screenings, men and women? Because a lot of things can be found right then and there where you don't have to go to the doctor over and over again. You can get it taken care of pretty regularly. The health savings account, like when my son had braces, I knew how much braces would cost, and I could take it out so much money a month to help pay for that and not be taxed on it. And prescription drugs, oh my goodness, they're out of this world, prescription drugs. And you have to look at generic over regular. You have to look at how we're looking at everything when it comes to medication. Is it a drug you need to be on? How many drugs do you need to be on for one thing? How many doctors are you going to? Is the doctor regulating all the drugs? Do you have one main doctor that's looking at all the drugs coming in and making sure we're not double doing it? And the cost of drugs. They make a lot of money on these drugs. Funding Medicare in the 21st century. Payroll taxes. It comes on your payroll taxes. Anybody that has a job sees it on there. It's a general revenue. Premiums and copay by enrollees. So I have to pay a copay when I go to my appointments, but I also have a premium I have to pay each month. And it usually comes out of your taxes. Aging baby boomers and climbing healthcare costs make the future uncertain. And that becomes very important for us to remember. Those baby boomers are a big amount of people that are going to load down on that. Affordable Care Act. Yes, this is what other people call Obamacare. The correct name is the Affordable Care Act. Major expansion of the federal involvement in health care. The goals: make health care insurance more affordable, reducing growth in overall health care spending. It was controversial, but some provisions upheld by the Supreme Court. And it's still, you still hear that they want to stop it from going on. The biggest deal is both sides have sensational cases they come out on. When there's a child that's 2 years old and can't get health care, why? There's some things that really don't make sense. People that couldn't get health care. With that, you can stay on your parents' health care longer for kids going to college. But it's expensive. Health care is expensive. Health care a month is expensive for most people. That comes out of your check. It's one of those things they tell you how much you make, and then you look at the bottom of your check, everything that comes out, and you're making very little in the end. Types of school voucher programs. Low income. Parents of disabled children who don't like public schools to which they are reassigned. Families in rural areas too far from public schools. Opponents feel vouchers divert from public funds to private institutions. Now, the one thing, I'm going to go pro-public school for a little bit, okay? With public school, if you live in that district, they cannot turn you away. They have to give you some kind of services. A private school does not. Now, I will agree that there are schools better than other schools. And you have to figure out what works best for you and your kids. The school voucher program is designed so that we could help offset some of those costs. There's a lot of people who disagree with it. A lot of people are wanting to go to that. A lot of inner city schools have went to magnet schools or charter schools that they want some kind of help in paying for them. Other kind of school choice: charter school, magnet, interdistrict school choice, homeschooling, and parent trigger laws. Homeschooling is kind of different. Depending on who the homeschool is, it can work out very wonderfully. I've seen families where some of the kids have received an excellent education and the others didn't do so well. And then I've seen families where these kids are bright and smart and should have been in public school. And then I've seen other families where it didn't matter where that kid was going to school. That kid was he just knew what was going on. I think homeschooling is a lot of effort in order to make all of those things. But I also think public education, charter school, magnet school, interdistrict are all important for one thing. You have to have parent involvement. Now, chartered schools, magnet schools, even sometimes the interdistrict schools will have a parent contract with so many hours of parent contact that they have to come and give, that the public school can't always give, which makes it more hard. Total education spending per pupil. public elementary and secondary schools. 2007-8, 10,441. You know, it's one of those things. Concerns in early American history about creation of a welfare state. U.S. policy in the 21st century. We want to help those in need, and we want to reduce risk in daily life. The ongoing debate is how government should help its citizens, and at what point do the citizens have to help themselves? You know, can you get a job? Sure, anybody can get a job. You just might not want to work at a fast food restaurant. You might not want to be a janitor. And so there's the questions. Are you willing to start low and build your way up? Are you willing to go to school and start at whatever your degree is and build your way up? Okay, there's chapter 16. Please email me if you have a question, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can.